An illegal immigrant charged with the murder of a 22-year-old Georgia nursing student, Laken Riley, is the Venezuelan who reportedly crossed illegally into El Paso back in 2022 and was released into the U.S. on parole. Here to discuss, retired acting ICE Director Ron Vitiello, along with Dan Rosenberg, who knows about stories like this all too well. His son was killed by an illegal immigrant. They both join us now. Dan, I'd love to start with you. I know you've spoken about this in the past. Your son was killed in a collision with an illegal immigrant. When you arrive at a moment like this, Dan, how does the fact that the perpetrator of a crime shouldn't have been in the country to begin with impact your grief?
Well, it makes it completely a preventable crime. There's always going to be traffic collisions, crimes that are committed, but these are committed by people who have no business being here. Had he not been here, and there was also opportunities to deport him, my son would be alive, and tens of thousands of other people would be too, and certainly, Laken Riley wouldn't be a news story today.
I think that's put very well, a preventable crime. We also have domestic crime. It's hard to wrap our minds around the fact that we import crime to add to our troubles. And in your situation, Don, your grief. Ron, I'm going to put up the charges now for this Venezuelan illegal immigrant that is allegedly killed Laken Riley in Georgia. You can see him on your screen. It's malice murder, felony murder, all the way down to kidnapping, concealing the death of another. Ron, what I'd love to ask you is probably something that many people are asking themselves at home. So we now know how many times that Jose Ibarra came into contact with the system. That first time he comes into the system, and I haven't heard about his criminal background in Venezuela. How does Border Patrol check if what they have encountered is someone, you'll never know about their propensity for crime, but you will know about their history of crime?
Let me start by giving my condolences to the Riley family and Dan as well. These are preventable crimes, to the point. What happens in the system is when Border Patrol encounters people like this from wherever they are, they do the best they can, right? Everybody's fingerprinted into the system. That system is checked against the holdings that are in the United States. And that's important. Those are the holdings that the FBI and the databases that the states produce for people who have been previously arrested. And so do we share stuff with Venezuela? Yeah, through Interpol and other mechanisms. But it's not like checking with the local sheriff whether this person has been arrested before or whether the FBI has their fingerprints in a database somewhere in the United States. So we're really dependent on agent observation about, like gang tattoos, other, attributes that the person might have. We may know that they're a criminal. We may know from a different source like intelligence that they're criminal. But we're really dependent on the holdings of the United States government. And in the case of this gangster or this individual from Venezuela, we knew that they were from Venezuela. They may or may not have had documents. We don't even really know that based on the testimony that they give to agents in the field. And so this is the idea, of all the risks that we face when we have an out-of-control, chaotic border. These burdens come front and center to the Riley family, to Dan's family, and to families all across the world. Again, a preventable crime. And we know that in the case of Venezuela, we let them sell oil on the international market without having a repatriation agreement during the most critical time when there were more people coming illegally from Venezuela than any other place in the world along our southwest border.
Real quick as a follow-up, Ron, President Trump mentioned prisons. For example, in some place like the Congo being emptied, there's been suspicions that Maduro in Venezuela is emptying his prisons. From your experience, I know that we have the Cuban Mariel boat lift when Castro emptied the prisons in Cuba. Is that something that you experienced in border enforcement, men who had clearly been spending time in prison being essentially imported to the United States?
Yes, it's a constant threat inside the flow of when you have a chaotic border like this. That threat rises not just at the border with the agents and the communities, but all across the country, because we know these people are sneaking in because they couldn't come in otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And last question to you, Don, and I'll apologize. I said Dan at the beginning. Ron followed my lead, but your name is Don, not Dan, and so my apologies for that. But Don, I do want to end with this. Because of your unique position on this issue and others like it, I'm curious, how often do you end up speaking to others who have dealt with a crime at the hands of an illegal immigrant? And how often do you hear about your situation, either firsthand or in the news?
Well, about 7 years, my son was killed in 2010. About 7 years ago, other victims and I created an organization called Advocates for, for Victims of Illegal Alien Crime. I wouldn't say, especially now, because it's much harder to get information out of this administration, but pretty much on a daily basis, if we're not talking to somebody, we do have contact with them. I just had a long conversation this Friday with a woman who lost her son a few months ago. And this case is not an anomaly. This happens all the time. It's not always a murder, but there's a lot of death, there's a lot of crime, and everybody that comes into the country illegally is not trying to kill somebody, but way too many are, right. And there's no way to know when you come in illegally, whether you are or not. So I'd say it's a regular basis that and I deal with this,
and that's a shame.
Every day of the week and have for the last 13 years.
A regular problem for something that we, again, already have enough of in the United States domestically. Ron, Don, thank you for being with us. Don, thank you for sharing this terrible situation with us once again. We sympathize with your situation. Thank you so much.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley.
Wow. I said it multiple times. It's only going to get worse and worse. Wow. These migrants, they don't give no fuck about nothing. We don't know their background. We don't know what they're capable of. Y'all tell me what y'all think in the comments. And make sure y'all hit that like and subscribe button.